snow in the cold December night. I'm still up, don't know why it's so.
As you saw from the title, today we're going to be talking about being alone for the holidays. And oh my gosh, you know, if you watch me for any length of time at all, you know that I was single for 35 years. And there were many times in those 35 years when I spent Christmas by myself for one reason or another. And we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the difference in being alone and being lonely, because they really are two different things. We're also going to talk about some things that I've done over those years that kept me from feeling lonely. And we're going to talk about a few things that I would probably do again if I were ever in a position to be spending a holiday by myself. But before we get into that, I want to say that my heart goes out to any of you who may be in that central part of the United States, Kentucky mainly, you or friends or relatives. What happened there this past weekend was just horrific. And I want you to know that I'm thinking about you. You're in my heart. About 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, we were in the eye of Hurricane Michael when it made landfall. And we did evacuate, but we came home the next day to total devastation. And it was indescribable. It was indescribable. First learned about Mercy Chefs from Hurricane Michael. And if you're not familiar with Mercy Chefs, they are a Christian church-based organization that actually comes in when there's natural disasters, and they feed people, but they feed them good food. And listen, they are still in the Panama City Beach area even today, 3 years after Hurricane Michael. Hurricane Michael was the largest hurricane to ever hit landfall in the continental United States. That's how devastating it was. And when I looked at those pictures in Kentucky, in Mayfield, Kentucky, the other day, it was so reminiscent of what we were seeing in right after Hurricane Michael. Jim and I have been making donations to Mercy Chefs really since Hurricane Michael. Anytime there was a natural disaster of any kind, that has sort of become our go-to charity that we like to contribute to, because, as I said, we've seen firsthand the work that they do. So right after those tornadoes hit last weekend, we made our first donation to Mercy Chefs. And I sat down this morning and I made a donation personally to Mercy Chefs. And I made it in the name of the RXSTRMOM YouTube channel, which includes all of you. Now, if you can do anything to add to that, it would be wonderful. I would just caution that any organization that you donate to for this cause or for any cause, please make sure they're on the up and up. They're legitimate, because, you know, these people come out of the woodworks when things like this happen, when disasters, and people are donating thinking that the money's going to get to those people, and it doesn't. So we feel fairly confident, we're very confident, and I'm going to put a link in the description box or the show more box below, so that if you want to go to their website and read about them, and then if you feel that you can help in any way, I know it would be appreciated. Mercy Chefs goes in and they bring their trucks and they work with their volunteers and they start feeding people. But then at some point they leave, and by that point they have trained some of the local churches in the area to pick up where they have to leave off. And those churches keep things going, but you can donate to Mercy Chefs to get all of that started. And please go on their website and read about them. I think you'll feel very, very comfortable donating through them or to them for those people who are just devastated by the tornadoes. Anything, I mean, just the smallest amount to the largest amount, I know it will be appreciated. Thank you. I think some of you probably saw Jim in a video recently where, I don't know what it was about, I don't remember, but he made the comment to you that I could seem to always be able to find ways to entertain myself. And, you know, that didn't just happen. That's not something that just I was born with. It's something about me that I had to learn. And I know that you can learn it too. Being single for over 35 years, as I said at the beginning of the video, listen, I have had holidays by myself, especially Christmas, where Jennifer was going to be with her dad. I couldn't go out of town to be with my family for one reason or another. One year I was deathly ill with the flu. I couldn't even be with Jennifer, and I was supposed to have been with her that Christmas, but I was so contagious, and we just had to wait several days after Christmas before we could actually celebrate it. I've had great friends who were going out of town for their Christmas to be with their families, and Jennifer would be with her dad's family, and again, I would be by myself. And as I said earlier, I figured it out. I figured out how not to be lonely, because there is a huge difference in being alone and being lonely. I want to tell you a very touching story that happened to me. Years ago, when Jennifer started her first business, she was working with celebrities, and she was booking them into venues to make personal appearances. And she worked all the time. She always traveled with these celebrities so that when they got to the venue, she could make sure that everything went as planned as what she had negotiated with the venues. So one year, I believe it was that first Christmas, or the second one, maybe the second one, she had been out of town for the week before Christmas. She was flying in on Christmas Eve, and it was just going to be the two of us. She was going to spend the night with me. We would get up the next morning and have our Christmas, and then she would go to her dad's to be with him. So it was Christmas Eve that day, and she called. And she was working with this young woman who had been in the foster care her entire life. And they were going to leave the city of where the event took place. Jennifer was coming home. She was going back to LA. So Jennifer called. And she told me the story, and she said, Mom, she's never had a Christmas. Every year, she would be in foster care leading up to Christmas, and the families would send her back to the orphanage or wherever she was, the institution, whatever it was, they would send her back so that they could spend Christmas with their families. They didn't have to buy Christmas for her. She had never had a real Christmas. So Jennifer said, Mom, I know it's late notice. She said, but if we could get her airline ticket changed, what do you think about me bringing her home with me for us to do Christmas together? And I said, bring her. And I asked Jennifer her sizes, how big she was, what she thought, and she told me. And I hung up the phone, and I went shopping on Christmas Eve, and I bought Christmas for her. Not knowing her, but knowing a few sizes, and I remember going to Dillard's and different places and buying her things that she could open under the tree. I went home and wrapped everything and had her name on it from Santa and had everything under the tree when they got there. We had dinner. My condo was 2 bedrooms, but one of the bedrooms was my office. So Jennifer was going to sleep with me anyway on Christmas Eve, but we had to put her friend, on the sofa in the living room. And the next morning, we got up, went downstairs. She's asleep under the Christmas tree. And of course she woke up and she apologized for that. She said, I've never had a tree. And she said, I hope it was okay that I slept under the tree. And I said, it's perfectly okay. Yes, it's okay. So we opened gifts, and she was wonderful. And she stayed another few days, and I got to know her a whole lot better. And Jennifer is still in touch with her to this day. I can think about being alone for Christmas, but when I think about what she must have gone through all those years, I can't imagine ever feeling sorry for myself again for being alone. I started doing some reading, getting ready for this video, and a little research, and I saw a lot written about the difference in being alone and being lonely. And I have my notes, so I'm going to refer to them here. I read where loneliness and being alone are 2 different pillars that are supported by the same emotion, but there's a distinct difference between the 2. Being alone is physical and mental freedom. Loneliness is emotional abandonment. Being alone is connecting to yourself and enjoying solitude. Loneliness is being disconnected from the entire world. Being alone is peace. Loneliness is a mixture of all the feelings that come with rejection and abandonment. Being alone is loving yourself. Loneliness is usually blaming yourself. And loneliness can occur in a crowded room or in solitude. And when I read that last one, it was interesting that how many times have we seen or heard people who have been in long marriages talk about being lonely? I have. Have you? I also read that most times people say they're alone because they have no one in their lives and they deserve it. But I think we should acknowledge the fact that being alone doesn't mean we can't get or keep a companion. Being alone has absolutely nothing to say about who we are. Being alone gives us the headspace to think and connect with ourselves. Being alone doesn't necessarily mean that we should get rid of the company of others. So I guess anytime we're going to be by ourselves, let's look at some ways that we can be alone and not lonely. And I read that the only way you can actually get used to being alone is if you're comfortable with yourself. You basically have to know who you are and who you're not. your strengths and your flaws, and you have to learn to love yourself either way. You have to develop a relationship with yourself. You can ask yourself questions. You can ask yourself questions like, how are things going in my life? Why am I lonely? What keeps making me unhappy? Who are the toxic people in my life? And why do I keep holding myself back from cutting them off? What doesn't make me feel good about myself? I thought those were some pretty good questions. I think one thing that I learned so many years ago is that I figured out how to enjoy being by myself. Let's talk about some things I did. I've taken many, many walks, painted my nails, given myself a manicure. I've tried cooking new dishes, caught up on favorite TV shows. Meditate. I've been meditating for a long, long time. I've organized my closet. I've cleaned the house, scrubbed the floors. I've tried new makeup. I've experimented. I've played around with it. I've gone to movies by myself. I've taken naps. I've slept all day. I work on a hobby, whether it's painting or drawing or sewing, knitting. I've even done laundry. And I've done volunteer work. I can always find something to do. When I know I'm going to be alone for a holiday, or any time for that matter, usually I'll try to plan something in advance. If I'm going to prepare or try a new recipe for myself, I'll make sure I have everything I need, because the stores are very likely going to be closed, especially if it's Christmas Day. So I make sure I have everything I need. I try to plan as much as I can, but listen, there are times when I plan nothing, because I think I may just want to be totally lazy and just chill all day, and maybe just lay in my pajamas on the sofa and eat bonbons and watch movies. You see, we don't have to be lonely. We can be alone and be by ourselves, but we don't have to be lonely unless we let ourselves. I go back to thinking about all of those people in Mayfield, Kentucky, and I think that's where this hit the worst. Those tornadoes wiped Mayfield, Kentucky off of the map. And yet Sunday morning, I saw on the news, they had gathered enough chairs to sit and have a church service. It had to be traumatic. And it's going to take a lot for all of those people to get back on their feet. So I please help if you can. Please help. So I tell you what, if you are going to be alone for Christmas, what are you going to do? Have you made plans? How are you going to spend your day and your time? I'd like to know, and I'm sure others who are watching this video who are going to be alone would love some ideas too. So if you're going to be alone, share. If you've ever been alone, share what you did on those holidays so that you would have a good holiday too. Even though you were by yourself, you could have a good holiday. I want to thank you so much for watching. I want you to go out and be kind and be sweet and know that I love you. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.